Well, it's funny because I didn't feel like I was a fast hiker until mile 2000. So it really took me, like I wasn't fast. I mean, I was a runner in college, so it's like, that doesn't really translate, but I think the mental aspect translates, but it took 2,000 miles. And there's kind of a lesson in that, things don't take a month or 2 months or 3 months. That was like month 3.5 maybe, where I finally was like, okay, of doing something every single day, where I finally felt, okay, I feel like I'm actually quick. Like I can move at a decent clip.
Welcome to the IVI Podcast, where we talk with innovators and visionaries making an impact. And we have a great one for you today. Dick Lucas, co-founder of Fullsend Solutions out of California, marathon hiker, surfer, coder, and possibly future politician. Check out this insightful episode to find out as we dive into a variety of impactful discussions. Dick Lucas, welcome to the IVI Podcast, my man. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. IVI, what does that mean, actually?
Well, it's the three letters in the middle of our company name, Givinga, right? You got that piece, right? You see the little brand there, but IVI is innovators, visionaries, and impact, and that's really what we're focusing the podcast on. So you're number 3, but you can see the 2 before you.
Epic.
Are people that are either innovating, have some sort of vision, making an impact. And I'm super excited about this one because you check almost all those boxes, both professionally and personally. We have a super cool backstory between our companies that I want to dive into. You personally have an unbelievable backstory that lends a dimension into this discussion that I think is going to be pretty cool. And then we'll kind of sew everything up at the end. So what I want to do is, for all of our listeners, I'm going to break this into really 3 pieces today. I want to do the kind of classic, who is Fullsend? How did we kind of get together? Who are you guys? How did we, kind of find each other? And, some of the cool things we've done together. I then want to talk about some of the things that you've done personally, because I think the audience will be fascinated by some of the really cool outside of the box stuff that you've done just as an individual, as a business owner, etc. And then we're gonna touch the third rail. We're going to try not to get electrocuted by the third rail. You never know, but
no, it charges you up.
Yeah, but I think with everything that's going on right now, and, with your background of being involved, getting involved, coming up with solutions, super cool podcast that you had during COVID that kind of stopped, called No Gradient, that really kind of turned me on to this discussion with you. I just think there's a bunch of cool stuff that we can talk about there. So that's kind of the high level of what we want to do. We'll talk about the 2 companies, talk about you, and then we'll talk about some of these dangerous topics that get people into trouble. But I think, given everything going on, it's super worthwhile having those discussions now. So let's talk about Fullsend first. Fullsend is near and dear to Givinga's heart, as you know. You, Sawyer, Alex Gutwillig, who we'll refer to as Goo from here on out.
Codename Goo, yep.
You feel you're not Givinga employees, but man, are you connected to the Givinga story? I mean, we met you all when Givinga was barely breathing. I mean, it was very, very early in the company's history, and it's part of the company's history. It's kind of part of the whole startup story that we talk about. Finding the right people, finding the right teams, working with organizations and individuals that can move the company forward, help the company think about where the company wants to be. And, Fullsend is probably one of the best examples that I have of that. So let's talk a little bit about the company. Talk about the 3 of you cats, how you all kind of got together.
Absolutely.
If you go onto the Fullsend website, oh, by the way, in my very high-tech way, you can see my Fullsend shout out back there on the northeast quadrant of the London map. But let's talk a little bit about how you all got together, and then we'll kind of weave in the Givinga piece as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. The Givinga piece is fun. So me and Sawyer met in Boston. We first met. He was an intern. I like to say I was his boss or his manager, but we didn't really. We didn't really hit it off when we first met. We were an agency called Raizlabs in Boston, which was honestly one of the best agencies for mobile. The CEO Greg Ray's had gone in all in on mobile on iPhone development early on. He started it in a Starbucks, I think in where is that, Brookline or Coolidge Corner or something. But he started it off, and then it got to a point of we were 19 Milk Street, I think 50 or 60 people. So, and I remember I was employee 42. We got bigger than that, and it got acquired. It got acquired again, and Greg had a lot of success, and it was an awesome time. Me and Sawyer met there. He was an intern. He's 2 years younger.
So Sawyer's an East Coast guy, right?
He's an East Coast guy. He went to Bowdoin. A lot of a few people at Raizlabs went to Bowdoin. He got an internship at Raizlabs.
And you were a Boston College guy, right?
I was a Boston College guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And the way I got the internship was awesome. In fact, I was just texting this guy. They didn't have an official, there's a lesson in this too. They did not have an official internship position, but I had a friend named Dominic who said, hey, here's this company, they do mobile, because I was doing Android stuff at the time, Android development. And he said, dude, you should just reach out to them. And I reached out to Amy. I think it was Amy who I spoke to first, was the ops person over there. She's awesome. And they said, yeah, come in for an interview. I wore a suit. Like everyone's wearing t-shirts. I wore a suit.
I cannot see you in a suit.
No,
I can't see you in a suit.
It's funny because I don't have I have like t-shirts and shorts and jeans, whatever. I have that end of the spectrum. And then I have a suit, and I have a couple suits, but I don't have anything in between, which is a telltale sign that I actually don't like. My wardrobe is beat. Like I don't have the in between, like look nice at like a horse race or something. Like I just have to wear a suit. So I actually, I like wearing the suit. I don't wear it often, but I always wonder what would my life be different if I wore a suit every single day? Just wear a suit.
I can answer that. It would be different.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I started this, I had 20 suits in my closet.
Yeah.
And the last things that I got rid of were the suits, because there was this cloak around that, right? It was kind of defining who I was. And now I have one suit, maybe two.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's very interesting
100%.
how the perspective changes,
Yeah, well, I also feel like I can't think in them a lot of times. You just can't think. Like it's
constricting. Yeah,
it's constricting.
Then put one of those ties on and see how that helps you.
100%. So yeah, me and Sawyer were Raizlabs. Yeah. Anyway, I got the gig and it was awesome. I interned there. Then I came back full time after I graduated. I think I was there a year or so or two, and then Sawyer came. He was an intern again. I was his boss, and then a year later. So I went to the Oakland office. Sawyer then came out to Oakland office. So he graduated. Instead of coming to the Boston office, he came to the Oakland office. And it's
still with Raizlabs. Still with Raizlabs.
Okay. I was still with Raizlabs. Yep. And it's funny because like one of the few things I told him to do that summer was I was like, dude, buy Bitcoin. I think that's like one of the few things I was like, dude,
we're going to talk about that.
We'll talk about that. But I was like, buy Bitcoin. And then also you're an intern. I'm the guy in the room. Like, let's not, I don't know. But we must have hit it off enough such that when he was coming out to Oakland, he was like, wanted to build an app. He was always building apps on the side, always working with freelance clients, which is how Fullsend got started. But he's like, yo, let's build this app together. You do the Android version. I'll do the iOS. And I didn't want, for some reason, I didn't want to do it. But there was enough of a rapport there that when he came out, he was like, let's do this. And then we hit it off in the office.
Why did you not like each other at the beginning?
It wasn't that we didn't like each other, honestly. I just don't remember that well. It was just like, it was funny. I thought, actually, when I first saw him, I was like, oh, this is like a Bowdoin privileged rich kid. Which is
go look at Sawyer's picture and you'll understand what Dick's talking about.
I know. He looks like that.
I hate him. I hate him because of that too, by the way.
He's the best. Yeah, he's the best looking guy of all time. But the thing is, it's funny because obviously you shouldn't think of anyone that way and just dismiss it. But also he's not that at all. He's a complete hustler. He's been grinding his whole life. So, but it was funny. But that's not, I don't know. I think we talked a little bit. I ended up I was on the other side of the office. We had like a Star Wars theme. I was on the dark side. I was, yeah, we were just like, I don't know. It was funny. But then things hit it off in the Oakland office, and we worked there a couple years. And I left there. My sister had the idea to do the Pacific Crest Trail,
Hmm.
which is a trail from Mexico to Canada.
Oh yeah.
People have seen it. The movie Wild. Cheryl Strait wrote the book. Reese Witherspoon. I haven't read the book or watched the movie, but that's how it's in the public consciousness. A lot of
Yeah,
people, that's how they know
we're
that.
gonna talk about that in a little
We'll
while.
get to that. But
Yeah.
anyway, I was like,
Yes, we will.
he was doing all this freelancing on the side because he was melting his student loans. So what he would do is he'd work 9 to 5 at Raizlabs. He'd go work out, and he'd come back to the office and work another 3, 4, 5 hours on freelancing clients that he would find through. I mean, even his dad would help him out. He would find freelance, and he got the idea. He's like, dude, let's just do this, like me and you. Let's
Hmm.
start our own thing and do this. Take the Raizlabs playbook. Let's work with mostly early stage companies, which wasn't really the goal at the time. But he was already freelancing, so he got the idea, and I was like, okay, when I get back from the trail, like let's tackle it then. So we bought the domain fullsend.io for $700 before I left, and then when I got back, we went all in.
Okay, so you're in Los Angeles. He's in San Francisco at that point. Or are you both in
At
San
this point,
Francisco?
we're both in. Yeah, we're both in San Francisco. We're both living in San Francisco, but working in the Oakland office.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
When's Goo come into the picture?
Goo comes into the picture well, actually not when Givinga. Givinga came into the picture before Goo, excuse me. Goo came into the
We
picture.
were
You
before Goo.
actually,
Okay. Hmm.
oh yeah, you guys were before Goo, but Goo, the first time that I think one of the first times we met you in person, that surf session we did at Topanga, which all that area is, by the way, is burned, and we'll
Yeah.
talk more about that.
Yeah.
But that was
Yeah.
the first time Goo met you because we had just hired him. We had met Goo surfing. He's part of the surf crew out here. He was doing amazing stuff at Accenture, running entire teams, doing a lot of stuff with Marriott, Speedway, gas station stuff like that. He's running big type stuff.
Right. Right.
And then the first time, like Givinga allowed
He
us.
was the suit that you hired, right? I mean, he was
He was
the consultant. Yeah.
Right. He knows how to work in that environment. He knows how to talk to like these big organizations and stuff like that. And obviously he's super scrappy too. So he can wear the suit, wear the t-shirt. He can do it every way. But Givinga, because you guys were such an anchor client for us, we felt like we could bring someone on full time and not be worried that, hey, if like we're gonna have to let this person go because the finances won't be good or whatever. We brought him on, and Givinga was his first major project. He was like, we made him a weapon on Givinga.
Yeah, he was a weapon on Givinga early too.
Yeah.
Still is,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in those early days, three were unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you guys create this company.
Yeah.
When I was introduced to you all, you guys were like the three coolest people that I'd met in probably 25, maybe longer years, right? Vibe of the company was super cool. I told somebody that, and this will date me, that you guys reminded me of the Point Break guys.
Yeah.
Except you coded instead of rob banks. And
now we rob banks with code, but yeah, just kidding. We don't. No financial crimes ever.
I told that to my family early, and I succinctly remember saying, my wife saying to me, well, then that kind of makes you Keanu Reeves. And literally my kids, right after she said that, said, no, Mom, he's Gary Busey. And
Nice.
if you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie and you'll understand what an insult that is coming from your children. It was excellent.
Utah, give me two. He likes meatball. I think it's a meatball sandwich. I think.
Yeah, he liked the meatball sandwich. Yeah, but
I think
it was my son who basically said that and reminded me, no, you are not Keanu Reeves. You're Gary Busey sitting in the car. But
yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about
the
vibe that you all have and kind of how you created that. There's culture in what you all were building, still is. The work hard, play hard ethos is strong with you guys, and you play hard, but I've never seen a company that works as hard as you all do. So how'd you get that?
Well, I give credit to Sawyer and Goo. Me and Sawyer lived together. When he came out to LA, we had started working with Givinga during COVID. I was in North Carolina at my wife's parents' place for about 4 months. Sawyer, I forget where he was. He was somewhere back east. I think he was back east. Anyway, but then we decided let's all move in him and his girlfriend, me and my girlfriend at the time, we moved in together in Venice. We got a place, and we started out by just starting the day. We live very close to the ocean. We would just dunk in the ocean, like let's just dunk in the ocean to start the day, and then get to work. And it's pretty cold. People don't realize it. I think people don't realize it. On the Pacific, like Pacific side, like the water's cold.
Yeah.
So, 60, I don't know, 65, I don't know, even like 62. It fluctuates, but it's colder than a lot of the places in the Atlantic. So people are like, oh, you're wearing a wetsuit. It's like, dude, you need to wear a wetsuit or you won't be comfortable up there. But so anyway, the plunge meant something. But Sawyer was surfing. Sawyer was surfing in San Francisco before he moved out here. I had grown up in Los Angeles. I grew up in Glendale. I had never surfed. I had sponged, boogie boarded, but I had never surfed. So Sawyer
Really?
was, yeah, I had never surfed. And Sawyer was the one that was, because I was living with him. He had some Northeast friends that had a surf group out here. It's funny, people on the East Coast, when they come out to LA, they stick together. It makes sense, but like, there's a lot of like
East Coast people always stick together. It's crazy. Yeah,
100%.
They travel in packs. Yeah, for sure.
100%. So he got me into surfing, and he would like, dude, I remember the first time we went to dude, there was no traffic. This was during COVID, so you could we went all the way down to Huntington Beach, which is like a little over an hour, no traffic. And I remember one morning he got us up at like 4:45. I was like, dude, what are we? And it was just, we were just quiet in the car, and he was driving. He knew that I was pissed because I was like, dude, what are we doing? Like, we're going all the way down here. But he was definitely like the impetus, like, let's get up every morning and fucking surf. But finally I was like, okay, this is epic. And I kind of got it. And then we met surfing. He was one of the guys in the surf group, and we would talk about what he was doing at Accenture. And then he joined us, and yeah, for a long period there, we just surf every morning. We had you guys had a board meeting when you came out here, which we were presenting at, and we surfed that. Well, that's when we surfed with you.
Well, let's clarify that.
Yeah.
You all surfed that morning. I put on a wetsuit and I bobbed. I bobbed in the water for 2.5 hours. It was something on my bucket list. You guys threw me into a wetsuit in the back of the car. It was 6:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
I think I have to go back and check.
You were nude on PCH putting that thing on. I think we had a towel.
Exactly right.
But yeah.
Exactly right.
Epic.
But I think that was our first board meeting, and the whole day, if you recall, was an epic day. I mean, it was the surfing, just watching that culture out there was super interesting to me, because it is a culture and there is hierarchy, and who is this guy that's, floating around out there that we've never seen before, and how do you catch waves and how do you line up? So I was fascinated by that. I did not catch a wave, so I've got to rectify that at some point. But I think that whole concept of getting outside of the office and doing things like that makes you better once you're inside of the office, because as that day progressed, it's a perfect example of needing to be really, really good inside the office and kind of entering in a really, really solid frame of mind. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
No, 100%. Sawyer always says, like, there's nothing like getting stapled to the bottom of the ocean with a big wave to kind of set the tone for the day and make the rest of the day feel easy. So
put things in perspective. Exactly.
Put things in perspective. Also, I think you really touched on the cold. There's absolutely, and this is a new thing for me. You think that surfers are relaxed and chill people. They're really not. They're like actually the opposite. Right. They're extremely territorial. Like they, especially, Topanga, I haven't surfed there a ton, but at Topanga, I mean, certainly Malibu, First Point, like people are just like, yo, stay out of my line. I remember one of the first sessions of my life, I was like, just paddling out there, like smiling, and this guy, like, what's up, dude? He's like, stay out of my line, and just kept paddling. Like it was just awesome. So the surf culture is extremely well. It's very much like if this person, the reason it's like that, it's like if this person's on the wave, I'm not, and it's like there's only. The waves are not a renewable resource in the eyes of a surfer, because they're not. You can only have one person on a wave. People are extremely, they're dicks.
Well, it's funny because if you're if you're not a surfer and you're driving down the PCH and you're looking out west and you see this like idyllic setting, right? It's like waves coming in, all of these bodies out there. It looks like just a communal gathering, a real happy communal gathering of people. And then you get out there and it's something entirely different. You know, it's something that is very non-communal, and it's a very independent sport, right? I mean, you're with people, but you're really on your own, doing your own thing.
It is.
And then trying to abide by, the rules, the sets of rules that, are in place that are kind of unspoken, but you break them, you find out quickly.
Totally. Yeah. And different spots have different, Porto, El Porto, Manhattan Beach is like there's a lot more noobs there, and it's also a beach break, not a point break. So it's like, there's more opportunities for people to kind of share the wealth, but you'll get yelled at there for sure. And also it helps if very few groups are out there. So sometimes we'll have 10 guys out there, and you can kind of form like a little shield. So this is our area, and that helps. But you were out there, you saw it was funny because you were a little I'm just bobbing here. We wanted to make sure that we caught waves in front of you so that you knew that we could actually stand up and surf. Because if we went out there,
I knew that quickly.
Okay, yeah, but it was like we can't listen. Givinga's an important client. Joe's a beast there. We need to. Yeah. We can't just take him out here and not. So while you were thinking about I'm just bobbing out here, we're like, okay, we have to catch. We have to catch waves, or else. So
it was a great day. So let me fast forward through the day a little bit, because I think this is emblematic of who you guys are, and I want to talk a little bit about kind of the clients that you focus on and how you work with these clients, just kind of wrap this piece up. But so the day begins with surfing. We have a board meeting. At this point, Givinga has one investor. He's now our largest, most important investor, but we had literally one investor at that point that had come in, and he comes out and we do a board meeting, kind of right off the seaside there. I can't remember. I think it was in one of the hotel ballrooms or something like that. Or maybe
we went to the Viceroy. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But then we got dinner somewhere. I forget where.
No, so the story, we do the board meeting.
Oh, of course.
We're kind of high-fiving. Everything's great. We go out to dinner. I got this new company. It's starting to kind of stand up. We found these tech guys that I think are going to be really great. Yeah. We go out. We have, I'd say a few cocktails that night, maybe multiple. We end up at a bar after that. I can't remember what the bar was.
12.
And at some point that night, and it's late, it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock. I look over at my partner, and I say, it's probably time that we headed out. So the CEO and the investor leave the building. He and I kind of wobble back to the hotel. I get in my bed. I wake up the next morning. It's a beautiful day out. Everything's great. I walk in. I'm having a meeting with Chris. You guys are there. And I'm like, what a great night it was. Yeah. Do you remember what type of night it was?
Well, I do remember. So
we left. We literally left the restaurant, and the entire tech platform went down. Right. Yeah. I didn't know it because we'd already left. Chris Shields is there. You guys are sitting there. You've had few pops. Right. Yeah. It's got to be midnight. It's got to be midnight on the West Coast at this time. Yeah. And now Givinga's system is down. And all I can say is that by the time I got up the next morning, Givinga's system was back up, and there was an epic, late in or early into the early hours of the following day, tech exercise to get it back up and running, and it was led by you guys. And after I heard that, I'm like, okay, that decision that was super important for us to make and getting the right partners in place to help us, I never questioned that or have thought about it again after that. It was unbelievable. And it was just so funny that CEOs sleeping drunkenly, blissfully, whatever you want to say that night, all hell's broken loose. And by the time I get up, everything's fine. It was pretty cool.
We woke up early to surf, and I was honestly, I don't booze that much. Like I'm not a big drinker. I'll have a beer on a weekend, it's a,
Yeah.
You don't feel great the next day, blah, blah, but
hard. Yeah.
that was one of I think I've been hungover like in the last 5 years, like 3 times. That was one of the times I woke up. Sawyer, of course, is like, yo, we have to surf. Like I set my alarm. I don't know why.
This was after you got us back online, right?
Well, so we didn't find out until Sawyer was like, no. So maybe you guys were down at midnight. I don't think we found out until, I think you guys might have gone down at like 5:30 or something, because the way I remember it is me and Sawyer in the living room. He's like, dude, we have to go surf. You'll feel a lot better if we surf. I'm just feeling so horrible. I'm like, dude, I can't. So I'm about to go back to bed. In fact, I might have even gone to bed. Sawyer's in the parking lot, about to leave. He finds out, he's like, oh shit, Givinga's down. So he doesn't end up going. He comes screeching back and gets the system back. I think he had it back in an hour or something. Yeah. But his surfing got nuked. I was asleep. I woke up. He's like, dude, I didn't surf. Givinga went down, and I had to get it back up. And I think I came up, I was like, oh, dude.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but it was, and I forgot whose fault it was that it went down. I don't know if it was ours, but.
Well, at that point, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can point the fingers later. I don't even remember if we ever pointed the finger. We were just so relieved. But, there are these like inflection points when you build these businesses, right? And an inflection point, simply, you choose the wrong partner, and your business dies that night, right? That morning. It's over, right?
Totally.
We just happen to choose the right partner. And, it's just one of those learning exercises that I probably won't do this again, but if people are listening to this, I mean, these little decisions, you think, we can just hire anybody to do this. Yeah. They're just super important, and you have to really consider who you're working with. And, our partnership has been a partnership ever since.
Totally.
But you guys kept us breathing. Last one that I want to talk about, because I think that this is also symptomatic of, startup culture and the culture that you guys have built. So, we started with you in, I want to say it was like 2018, maybe a little earlier, 2019. COVID hits in 2020.
Yep.
And I'm in a complete panic because it's COVID, right? And I've said this in past podcasts, but I think to have a successful company, you have to go through the full circle, right? You've got to experience, can the company withstand crisis, right? Can it go through an unexpected turn of events, right? Because if it can't, then you're going to run into something at some point in the company's life cycle that's going to knock you down again. So COVID was a pretty big one, right? I mean, it was not a small thing. It was significant. I remember just sitting in Boston saying, okay, everything is shut down. Our lifeblood is on interacting with corporations. I have no idea what we're going to do. And from our end, we just started digging. We found this super cool IRS code that, started us down the path of employee relief and disaster relief. And I remember saying, okay, this is great, because if we could spool up disaster relief platform, then maybe we can breathe through COVID, right? Maybe that's the thing that gets us through. And so we reached out to you guys and said, here's the idea, right? Here's what we need. We have nothing, right? We need a platform. We need to be able to walk in and talk about standing up disaster relief for employees, right? Giving companies the ability to, align through the crisis and help people get through it. And the number that I have, the 3 numbers that I have are 23, 12, and 12. I don't know if you remember that. Absolutely. But from the time we made that phone call, it was 23 days, 12 hours, and 12 minutes after that platform was stood up.
Yes. Yeah, that was amazing. It was interesting about that. The initial shoe in with Givinga was Sawyer. Chris Shields, there was a connection of a connection. We were doing some work. Sawyer did some freelance work with Millie, who was using your platform.
That's right.
And Chris Shields, I think, had posted, "Hey, does anyone have any Scala? Are there any Scala devs around?" And Sawyer hadn't even heard of Scala. I was like, "Yo, we can do it." and that was our first touch point. And then obviously this that led to that project kicking off, where you guys releasing these white label solutions so that companies could raise money for their employees, could also raise money for just general relief efforts. So that was an amazing, and credit to you guys, you trusted us. We were moving fast. We were on testing. Givinga was our first anchor client for sure. And that was just awesome. The speed, I mean, and that thing raised millions of dollars through different companies.
We stood that thing up, and in the span of literally a month, we had a pretty significant client in Boston that raised, I want to say that the number was $500,000 for COVID relief for their employees. We had a couple other small ancillary ones.
Yeah, there were some golf courses. It ran the gamut.
Well, and then right on the heels of that was the George Floyd tragedy in March, if you recall. Yep. And that same customer and then a couple other customers spooled up another $450,000-$600,000 in response to that.
Yep.
And we were like right in the middle of this. We're like 4 or 5 employee company. We're working with you all, and some of the busiest times of the early stage of the development of the company was when the entire country was shut down. Yep. And it's just a super cool story of like 2 organizations brand new and just grit and resolve, trying to figure your way through something, trying to keep the lights on and keep things moving, and then stumbling into what turned out to be a super impactful, meaningful, socially impactful endeavor that you all then turned around and stood up in, basically 3 weeks. It was incredible.
Totally. Yeah. It was awesome. It was a test, and it was very fun. I forget exactly how we got down to the minute with that, because that's on our website, that figure.
Is it really?
We must have had, because we're proud of that. The 21 days, that was from like initial contact to this thing is live.
Yeah.
We must have looked at the commit history for the project, like when we actually deployed it.
Yeah.
But very, very, very proud of that for sure.
So last question on this piece.
Yeah.
Given all that, organization's grown.
Yeah.
Culture remains the same. You guys are obviously, growing, moving things forward. What's your target client right now? And, if y'all talk about, big, hairy, audacious goals or BHAGs, I mean, where are you all trying to go with the company next 2, 3, 5 years?
Yeah. It's funny because we don't set goals. Even our finances are very simple. I do all that stuff, and it's very much like, we have an accountant, of course, but like we don't look at profit, like in terms of like profit per deal, per resource and all this stuff. We've done it before, but frankly, it's just like when you zoom too much in, there's just, what are we going to do? Are we going to make are there going to be any actions based on this data? And the answer is almost always no. So let's just stop even focusing on it. Let's stop wasting my time on it. I'm lazy when it comes, like I just want to do the easiest thing as quickly as possible. I call it being smart, but I just don't want to spend time on things like that aren't useful, that aren't like, so we don't really.
It's waiting for the water to boil syndrome, right? It's like standing there looking at the pot and saying, if I just sit here long enough and look at it, something's going to boil.
Right.
Instead of just going out and making sure that you're doing everything possible to get the company moving.
Exactly.
The metrics are important.
Right.
Metrics when you run these companies are obviously important, but execution is absolutely critical. And if you're not executing, all these metrics fall out of bed almost immediately.
100%. We don't set goals. You know what we do though is we take every phone call. We say yes to everything initially. Like we're still small enough, and I don't think, at some point we'll get, maybe, hopefully we never get this big, but like we'll basically, even if someone is like, yo, hey, I have an idea, we'll just take the phone call. A lot of the times those smaller things don't work out, but sometimes those people will reach out to us in a year when they do have more money or or they'll refer us to someone. So we always say yes to everything. We never turn away a deal unless it's obviously not a good deal for us, or we don't think we can execute on it. But we just like, we don't have growth targets. We just try to grow. Like, we just are always trying to. In fact, we just made
You're
an
hustling.
offer.
We're
hustling.
You guys hustle constantly. And
that's what it is. I don't think there's not much.
Hustling, the appropriate definition of hustling, right? You guys are out there active, helping clients think through complicated problems, and just, you were there every time we needed you. And I know that that's kind of how you guys continue to build the organization. So
totally.
Lot to be learned from that, because I think these startups, we get fixated on things that, while they're important, they're just really not important, right? I mean, It is, how quickly can you get to free cash flow? How quickly can you scale that company? Are you doing everything possible to, make that happen? I mean, you can look at LTV to CAC all day long, right? You can look at all the metrics associated with it, but if you are not focused entirely on executing against those, executing the market that you've chosen, and then, adjusting if that's not happening, dead in the water.
Totally.
All right, so let's go to number 2, right?
Awesome.
And number 2 dives into a little bit more about you. I mean, I think that one of the cool things about stepping away from what I used to do and doing this is it just put me in touch and in front of and interacting with people that, I never would have interacted with. I never would have known you guys had, I not stepped away from my financial service career. There was no way that those circles were intersecting. And, the job and even the podcast gives me kind of chances to reflect back on that. And you've done a lot of things that I think the audience would be super, super interested in. And I want to talk, why don't we start with Pacific Crest Trail? And, when you talk about this, hike, I put it in parentheses. I don't think that what you did, and, that group of people, I watched that podcast that you did with the other 3 people on there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Which was super cool, but I don't think it can really be overstated, the difficulty associated with that, the level of commitment associated with doing what you did. And this is and I'll stop talking because you know way more about it than I do, but this is a 2,650 mile long trail that stretches from basically Mexico to Canada. I was trying to figure out elevation changes because it's all over the place. You start in the deserts, you're walking through snowfields, you're doing all that.
Yep.
And what struck me when I listened to you all talking about that is, the impact that doing something like that had on not only you as a person, but just kind of how you looked at your career, looked at your kind of life after you came off the trail. So I'd love for you to just kind of talk through it with people, because like one thing that you ran into a couple of guys that were trying to do sub 100 hikes. And days, just for anybody doing the math on a sub 100 day hike on the Pacific Crest Trail, that's basically the equivalent of walking a marathon every day for 100 days.
Well, it's more than that. I think it's 50. What's 26? Well, it's like. Oh no, let's see.
It's 26. Oh, no. It's like 26. Right. It is 26 and a half, something like that, right? I mean, if you do the quick math on 100 days.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. You know why that number sounds small to me is because we were basically doing that, except this doesn't include zeros. A zero is when you don't do any miles that day.
Yeah.
So if you average it out, and a zero it greatly brings down your average. So a 20. You're right. It's a marathon every day.
But I mean, you just how many days did it take you, by the way?
It took us a little over 5 months, May 1st to September 26th.
Okay.
Or excuse me, about 5 months. What is that? Yeah,
okay.
5 months. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's an incredible feat, and if you think it's not hard, I mean, just try walking 26.5 miles a day for 3 days in a row, right? Just on flat roads in Boston. See how you feel after that. Let alone stumbling over, climbing up, scaling down. So, talk a little bit about how did you, because this is one of those things where you hear about someone who does this and it's aspirational and you think, God, that sounds incredible. Yeah. But the absolute commitment required to do something like that and do it properly and finish it is way beyond I'm just going to go out and kind of knock this thing out. So how'd you?
Well, the hardest thing about it is not even the trail itself. I'd say it's taking the first step. It's actually getting there, because what you need to do is it doesn't take much preparation. Honestly, like you don't even need to train. You don't need to train. You could buy your gear the day before. Like you could change your gear while you're on the trail. So you learn as you go, you talk to people. So there's very little prep that you actually need to do. The one thing you need to get a permit. You need to get a permit like around November before is when we got ours. The November the year before. Well, it was like 6 months before. That is the prep you need, but it's the taking time off work. It's or quitting your job. It's the explaining to everyone that's like, oh, I don't know, like taking time off isn't, your parents, your significant other. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, significant others too. I mean, there are a lot of people that get pulled off the trail because like their relationship, like, oh yeah, we lost another one. You got to go back to his girlfriend. So it's all the stuff outside the walking that I would say is the hardest part. And I think people overestimate, 6 months of not working. First of all, your expenses are extremely low on the trail. Like, I mean, you're sleeping in a tent. You have to buy the gear. But once you're on the trail, you're buying food at grocery stores. Like the food isn't specialized stuff. Like it's cheap. You're staying in motels sometimes, but it's a cheap trip. So it's really the opportunity cost. As far as the cost goes, like the financial cost, it's the opportunity cost of not working. It's not especially if you don't have rent, like you're not spending much money out there. So I think people think it's a bigger deal than it is. And often, dude, I would say if you're working, I left my job. So I wasn't like trying to come back to it, but try to take my advice to people is like, if your company's not going to give you a leave of absence, leave, and then I bet you they'll take you back. And guess what? If they don't, there's no way that you're going to regret doing something like this. Whether it's the trail or 6 months to go on a travel or do whatever you want. 6 months isn't that much. Like it's really not. But
blink of an eye.
It's a blink of an eye. So it's like that's the hardest part. But actually, once you're on the trail, it was my sister's idea to do it. It was some of the hardest.
And you and your sister did it together. I didn't know that until I listened and kind of put two and two together on that.
It was her idea. We did it together. And it's funny. Some of the biggest decisions I've made, whether it's doing the PCT, starting Fullsend. Me and my wife traveled took some time off to travel after we got married. We can riff on that a little bit. But it's funny. Some of the biggest decisions I look back on, I'm like, they weren't, I didn't think much about it. I was like, oh, this just seems like I wasn't like bringing up spreadsheets or doing all this research. I was like, oh, this just seems cool. Let's just do this. It wasn't like a very up here. It was more of like let's just do it kind of in here.
Well, I mean, it has to come from here first, right? If you're up there, you're defeated already, right? You got to want it to be able to do that.
Right.
How did it work with your sister? You all, I mean, siblings? I mean, you all obviously are close. To bring you closer? I'm assuming
we're close.
Did.
Yeah, it definitely brought us closer. We definitely fought on the trail, right? Like anytime anytime you're spending that much time with anyone, like things are going to happen. That's just part of it. Like you don't look at that as an existential thing. It's just like, okay, sometimes we beef, whatever. But the hardest part for me was the first 2 weeks, and it doesn't need to be this way. My sister was like more gung-ho in the first 2 weeks. She was like, let's do more miles. Let's do this. My body, I was limping, Joe. Like Warner Springs is like the first camp you stop at. I think it's like day 7, somewhere around there. I could barely walk because when you walk enough, and you have a pack on, you get really, really sore. I was fucking dying. And what I tell
shoulders,
people, just places the legs.
Places that just you're not used to being sore in, right? I mean, because you just don't use those muscles.
I went on one backpacking trip before this, I think.
That's incredible.
One. And my sister took me on that one to test my gear. You don't need to. People way overvalue preparation.
I would have overplanned something like that to the nth degree.
No, you figure it out on the trail. You don't need. You're talking to people on the trail, but it's funny.
And then I'm assuming you just get into a cadence. After 2
Yes.
weeks, you are just like, now you are goal oriented, and
Yes.
it is, your perspective on things has to change by the day as you're out there.
Well, it's funny because I didn't feel like I was a fast hiker until mile 2000. So it really took me, like I wasn't fast. I mean, I was a runner in college, so it's like, that doesn't really translate, but I think the mental aspect translates. But I didn't feel fast until like, I was like, okay, I'm actually fat. It took 2,000 miles. And there's kind of a lesson in that you got to keep, things don't take a month or 2 months or 3 months. That was like month 3.5 maybe, where I finally was like, okay, of doing something every single day, where I finally felt, okay, I feel like I'm actually quick. Like I can move at a decent clip.
What was your feeling that last step that you took, right? So was there a sense of accomplishment, or was it relief? I mean, I'm just super interested.
Yeah. The final step, some people cry because it's right at the Canadian border. I did not have a rush of me and everyone has a trail name. Mine was Motorboat. My homie Filter. We would always joke like the last couple weeks was like, I just want to get home on my mammy's couch. I just need to get home. The trail's not over until I fly home, and it's a wild flying back. 'Cause you fly back from Canada, you fly back basically to where you started, and you're just in the air for it's a few hours. You're like, damn, I hiked this entire thing.
Exactly.
That felt kind of crazy, but I didn't feel I was ready to get off the trail. It was fun to be on there. We were having a blast, but I was like, okay. I wasn't like, it was a big accomplishment, and I was ready to now go into the next chapter. That's how I felt.
I've got two questions. Question number one around the personas, because I found that fascinating, right? So
totally,
you don't go by Dick Lucas on the trail, right?
Yeah.
Did you make up that name, or someone give that?
No,
to you?
it's bestowed upon you.
Bestowed upon you. Okay.
It's a big part of the culture on the trail is like your trail name, like how you get it and all that stuff. And
now, I mean, we're a G-rated podcast. But,
exactly. Everyone knows what motor, but yeah, we can leave that where it is. And there's not really a crazy story.
I figured that was it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we can, but it was funny because I remember the first time I used my trail name was this was maybe I got my trail name early. I was like, oh, I want a trail name. So I think it was maybe day 3 or 4. A lot of Europeans do the trail. They fly out. In fact, when I flew back from Italy, because I was spending time, my wife now was in Italy. I flew back from Italy. I sat next to a dude coming from the UK who was doing the trail. Crazy, coincidence. And we were chatting, and I'm like, dude, I'm doing the trail too. A lot of Europeans are on the trail. They fly out. They take like Europe, because people, you need to appreciate in America, like a lot of country. I mean, we're like the long distance trail mecca. Like this really doesn't exist. You have like huts in other countries and stuff. Like, the Camino's a great one, which I want to do at some point. But the type of wild, like, you're kind of out, you're completely in the middle of nowhere a lot of the time. That only exists really in the United States, and it's supported and it's legal, and you can do it, and it's an official thing. But you can hike anywhere. I mean, right? You can make your own trails in other countries, which people do all the time if you really want to.
But the persona allows you to create almost from scratch, right? Who you are on the trail. I mean,
yes.
that was the thing that really got me when I was listening to the four of you talk about, right? How you have your real world.
Yes.
This is who I am. I'm Dick Lucas, and I'm with Fullsend. And now you've got this trail persona that really allows you to, kind of explore a different side of things and kind of create how you want to be viewed as you're talking with people and passing people.
100%. And I think that you're a more extreme version of yourself. And on that podcast, I said it's like being in a video game. Because everyone's doing such a cool thing. Everyone's hiking, and some people, when I said the first time I used my trail name was, European girl. She was crying. Her bladder for her holding her water broke. Her pack was completely flooded. And she's like, what am I doing here? I flew all the way out. She was just in shambles. And I was like, no, you're good. Like, I was trying to, talk her up. And she's like, okay, what's your name? And I just said Motorboat. Like, that was the first time I used it. And I was like, okay, I guess this is it. But someone had, like I said, I didn't just say it. Someone had called me that. I was like, okay. And then I used it. I was like, okay, that's my name.
That's it. Right.
But yeah, you do feel like everyone around you feels like they're a beast because everyone's like, especially in the Sierras, it was a high snow year. So you're hiking over passes. You're using ice axes. A lot of people don't even know how to use them. I didn't know how to use it. Like I use it wrong all the time. You have microscopes. So everyone's in an environment where people like you're doing an epic thing. So as you look around and talk to everyone, feels like it's like in a movie when everyone in the room, like in Ocean's 11 or Expendables, or I haven't even seen Expendables, but like where everyone around is like, okay, everyone can like look at each other, know that what each other are going through and have a certain base level of respect.
Right.
Certainly there's beef. There's a lot of gossip on the trail. I think but people don't realize is that when you get rid of, this happens in other areas too. And if you look out for it, you'll notice it. Like when you get rid of the phones, the computers, like if you just get rid of all that stuff and you're with a group of people, what happens is the level of gossip and drama actually increases in an order of magnitude because your entertainment and the way to gather information is talking about people and hearing rumors, who's dating who. Okay, this person was a dick. Like, okay, like you're constantly sharing. And I always have thought gossip is actually a beautiful thing. I think it's an underrated. I think it's a good, healthy thing. Obviously, you can overdo it. You don't want to be mean behind everyone's back, but it's like a way to disseminate information through a community that is extremely powerful and cheap and fast. And yeah, there's a lot of lies that get spread, which we saw a lot of. There's a lot of things like, oh, the snow stops at I forgot what the mile was. I have it written down somewhere. Like, the snow stops at mile 1100. Everyone was like, once we get to mile 1100, the snow's going to stop. We get there. Everyone was talking about this. It was the craziest rumor of all time. We get there and there's another 100 miles of snow or something. It wasn't even, it was crazy how the level of, I just think of like in, caveman villager days, like everyone's just talking shit. That's like good and bad.
It's funny because we blame technology, right? Oh yeah. But at the end of the day, rumors get started and you're going to find a pathway to kind of get those things going.
100%.
Good, bad, or indifferent. Yeah.
100%. I mean, the founding fathers, dude, they all wrote under pseudonyms. They were all shit talking each other all the time. They were fake newsing each other. Like this is a normal. It's not new. None of it's new. So
no, it isn't. Yeah. It just kind of recycles itself, right?
Totally.
I mean, founding fathers. You go back to Abraham Lincoln. I mean, you talk about craziness of the times that we're in right now, and this is not the first time the country's gone through this.
No.
Were you? I'm assuming the answer to this is yes, but were you genuinely afraid at points on that trail? I mean,
yes.
Did it put you in like physical places that challenged you and made you afraid?
Yes, I was the most dangerous part where people have died is river crossings and because you get swept away, boom, you're gone.
Right.
We had found out like it was a high snow year. So what happens in a high snow year, first of all, we're walking through a lot of snow, but also the rivers are ripping. And it's interesting. You get really in tune with when you're out there, like you get sensitive to things that you're not normally sensitive to. You get sensitive to like feeling the sun on your skin, like, and really appreciating that. You get sensitive to when the water in the rivers is much less. In the morning, it's not flowing as much. Why? Because the sun's not out and the snow isn't melting as quickly. So then you can kind of see in real time, like because you're still and you're not just working, you're not driving in a car, you can kind of you're distracted. You start seeing these things. It's a beautiful thing. But anyway, there were a couple times that like we had walked over a log that was across a river, and that log was very skinny, and it was like short, and it was resting on snow. If our whole crew walked across that, when we got to the other side, we found out another group just put that log there because they had walked across something that broke. I think they walked across a snow bridge that broke, and they put that there for the next people. We were the first people that I know of to have walked over that little log. Like it was untested, and
better to know that after the fact.
And dude, and then the next day there's passes, so you're going up. Like I was.
What was the elevation?
Yes. What was the elevation? Damn.
I mean, it'd be very interesting to see on a 2,600 mile hike how many flights of stairs you climbed during that period.
I don't know, but certainly like some of the passes were very like Forester Pass was the first major one. That was right over it. We got up at like 2 a.m. because you want to hike it when it's cold because the snow is more compact and icy and it's not going to slush under you. So everyone's in headlamps and you're just going up. No one's a fucking ice climber here. And we're going, I was like, I felt like I was thinking Mamba mentality, like Kobe Bryant, like just be very, because if you slip and fall, you will fucking die. And of course, I have an epic photo of me, and of course, I'm using the ice axe the wrong way. It's like, what are we doing, dude?
What are you
like,
doing?
But it was fine. No one, I think only one person died that year, which a friend of ours in our group knew, and we had a little ceremony for them. A tree had fallen while they were having lunch. A dead tree fell and hit them, landed on him. It's this guy from Germany, I believe. His trail name was Colors. But there were no river deaths that year. But that was more of a freak accident, but certainly the river crossings are dangerous. And it was scary. It was very scary. But I would lock in those moments. My sister always said this because we would beef, because she was tougher than me overall in this whole experience. But when in the moment, I would be a Navy SEAL, but then afterwards, I would be like, what the fuck did we just do? Like I would lose it. But in the moment, I would never freak out.
Right. You're in the moment. That's exactly right.
You're in the moment, which you rise to the occasion, and then you bitch at everyone. So that was epic.
So I'll combine a couple of things here, because I know that you and your wife's honeymoon was unbelievable. It was like a 6-month world. It was 6 months, right? World tour.
Yeah, 5.5.
Basically circumnavigating the globe for all intents and purposes, right?
Yeah.
So my question, and I've got some perspective on this. I'm just interested in yours, but so you go out and do these things, and they're not aligned with your business life. They're not aligned with kind of your career, but they have this impact, right, on how you view things, your perspective on things, right? Did you find your perspective had changed? And I bring up travel because when I was at Putnam, the company gave me the opportunity to go run businesses for them overseas, and we weren't slumming it by any means. We lived in London for 6.5 years.
Right. You were in London,
but
I remember.
My kids were super young, and they were in this bubble in Northern Illinois, right? We lived in Winnetka. Everyone looked like I did. It was very tightly controlled, right? Private schools, all that. And we pulled them over there and inserted them into London, and then we started traveling with them, and we traveled substantially over that 6-year period. I like to play golf. There were 6 years I didn't play golf at all. I take that back. I went to Scotland once, and I went to Ireland, but the golf clubs were put away.
Yeah. Right.
The golf clubs were put away, and we just dragged our kids around all over the place, right? Yeah. And it was funny because we got back here, and they'd been to every major European city and never been to Washington, D.C. It was funny, but I watched the profound change that they experienced. Less so with my son was young. He remembers it, but my daughter, it had a major impact on her worldview, right? You could watch the universe expand around her. And not only the understanding that, wow, you're not as important as maybe you thought you were, but wow, this world is huge and there are interesting cultures, people, etc. I'm just wondering, did you pull that out of both those experiences, and when you came back, did it redefine the way that you kind of look at your day job? So
yes, absolutely. And it's funny, I was looking at my notes from the PCT to prepare for this, because I was like, I haven't really thought about it. Or I haven't talked about it much recently. So I was looking at it, and one of the things I wrote about that was the same thing I wrote that I just realized like an hour ago when I was looking at it, was in my travels, which was my learning from the PCT when I got back, was do less when you get off the trail. I have this phrase I've told Sawyer and Gumini. I just wound everything down. Keep it more focused on what you want to do, because when you're doing the trail, what's so cool about the PCT, you're doing one thing. You get up, you hike, you go to sleep, you get up, you hike. It's very cool to be very focused. And when you're traveling, you're doing a lot, but you're also you're totally immersed in the similar way. You're immersed in another thing that's out of just day to day. There's no schedule. You're not looking at the time ever. Everything is just happenstance. Everything is just random encounters. There's no structure. Right. So when you get back, so I used to, And I forgot that lesson at the PCT, but I would have basketball on Wednesdays. I would have like game night where I'd play video games with my homies. We play competitive. We take it seriously. That would be on like Tuesdays. Monday was another fucking game night. Thursday was something else. I had my whole, and then I would have a date night. I had my whole week was booked.
Scheduled. Right.
Scheduled.
Yeah.
And it's good if you want to if you want to do shit, but it's like you have to, I've now have nothing on the books recurring. I've wiped everything. I'm like, I need to have a blank, just canvas. I think more people should do that. And you just got to focus on a couple things, like, focus on the immediate group of homies that you really are going to be still homies with in 10 years, 20 years. Like my phone notifications on my phone are completely disabled. Like I don't have message notifications. You can call me, but no messaging. It's all disabled. So like things like that, which that was honestly my biggest takeaway from both of those things. And I think we constantly have to relearn that because everyone's getting pulled in 1,000 directions. You really have to say, you got to say no. You got to see, what do you want to do? What do you like? What are your priorities? And you can't have more than 3 or 4. And if you start to have more, then you're not prioritizing. You're getting pulled in a lot of directions.
Wind down. I mean,
wind down. I'm not even surfing as much, Joe. I have to confess.
No, I know, but
I'm not.
I mean, it's so funny because you do these like big things. I mean, whether it's starting a company or hiking the trail or whatever, or taking your kids overseas. And it really realigns your perspective on things, right? My perspective today from where it was a decade ago is in some cases 180 degrees opposite of what it was. But
totally.
You have to fight the urge to go back to, the old way of doing things, right? You have to fight that sense of schedule and going back and just kind of getting back into that comfort zone of doing one thing after the other and weeks blending in together.
Yes.
And I find that if my week has blended in, and we all have them, but if I can't differentiate my Sunday from my Wednesday from my Friday, then I really sit down and say, okay, either I wasn't present enough or I've gotten back into this mindset that is not allowing me to kind of be more broad in the way that I'm perceiving things and thinking about things. So I think that's super important.
Totally.
And that's a great takeaway.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, so all of these things kind of come together, and we're gonna touch this third rail because I'm super interested in it. Yeah. I don't know, people can go on YouTube. I would highly recommend people go look at your No Gradient podcast. I don't know why you stopped doing that.
Yeah.
It was I watched it religiously just because it's somebody that's got opinions, that's not afraid to kind of sit out and talk through things. I mean, we're in a period right now, quite frankly, that we need solutions in my opinion. I mean, there's for some reason we've fallen back into, as you and I were talking about, this cycle where there's just a whole lot of yelling that's going on right now, right? And I remember when my parents yelled at me when I was younger, I just stopped listening to them, right? I mean, it's like yelling at me, I'm not going to listen to you. And if you're yelling at me and I agree with you, okay, but if I don't agree with you, you're not going to get anywhere. And what I found from those No Gradient podcasts and just some of the other things that you've published is you've got kind of a solution mindset to things. I mean, you talked about crypto when we first started. There's a bunch of riffs on oil. You've got some views on the landscape in California, right? Yeah. And they're going to be views that people don't necessarily agree with. Your view on Bitcoin and my view on Bitcoin, we're completely polar opposite. I think you're insane to go into that right now, right? Right. But not dialoguing and listening, right? It's going to get us nowhere, right? So I know that there's no announcement today, but I know that you've been kind of exploring some things, and I just kind of love to get your perspective on kind of where you think things are right now, and what you think the solutions are, because quite frankly, the country's going to move forward, not because guys like me are coming up with solutions, right? My time to come up with solutions is past, right? It's going to be you guys. It's your generation's turn to step forward. And frankly, I haven't really seen enough of that yet. I mean, I see a lot of anger and I see a lot of things burning in Los Angeles right now, but that to me is not a solution. I think that there are things in there that are important, but I haven't really seen that leadership emerge yet. And I'm interested in what you think about that.
Yeah, well, I think that generally I'm a very pro like disagreement, pro like let's talk, I'm actually okay with yelling, probably not in a forum like where you're presenting to people. Like I don't think a debate on CNN where you're yelling at each other is productive, but you're with the homies or you're with I like talking about politics. I think it's very interesting. I think that's where the rubber meets the road for so many things. It's funny because we're talking about here. That's another thing I've wound down. Group chats I will not talk politics in. I'm getting better at not talking politics. Yep. It's lethal. I'm getting better at not talking politics with my family. Not that my family, no one's crazy. I don't think I'm crazy, or even in polite, like with friends, unless it's one-on-one and someone asks me for my opinion, like, or my wife's fam, like anyone's fam or anyway, I try to listen more. Because frankly, people are not really down to, people frankly aren't down, and I don't blame them. Like people want to, they want to take care of their family. They want to, they want to have a good job. They want to have a bright future. They don't want to be like, you don't want to be at the dinner table arguing about shit all the time. I get that, but it's related to why I kind of wound the podcast down. It's like, I was putting energy into something. First of all, I think tactically I could have done better with like smaller segments on specific things. I'd basically just rant for 3 hours. Yeah. And it's not good for like search optimization. And I did some do the clip stuff, but I would just rant. And it was a good practice for me to like try all this up. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm kind of just talking into the void here. So I'm considering other avenues on what to do, but generally, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Like the crazy thing to me is if you look at, I would do voter guides. Like that's how I kind of really got involved. I'm like,
I remember that it was like, here's what's coming up on the ballot. Here's every single thing that's coming up on the ballot. And then you look at the people running for office. These are not accomplished people. And I'm not saying that to be mean. Like you'd think that the people running for office should be either leading our communities, they're leading our state, they're leading our country. They should be some of the most accomplished people. They should be in the top 10% of like people that have done shit. Yeah. And they're just not. And my big question mark is, why are not all the good people, I don't know one smart friend that's run for office. I don't know. Right. Let's see, maybe not like think of all your smartest homies or all your smartest people in your family. No one even thinks about running for office. It's not even a thing people do. So what does that happen when the talent pool is? But isn't that the process that's frightening people out of it? I mean, it's you run for office and then, the target's up, right? Yeah. And the hate mail starts and why do I need to do this? I'm successful. To your point, you're successful, right? Why do I need to do this? And my answer is, well, you absolutely need to do it because that's how the country's run. The country needs to be run by smart, capable, thoughtful people.
Well, there's also, totally. And there's this notion of public service, which
there is.
It's a big sacrifice to do it. But I think a lot of people, I just don't understand. It's one of you have a mediocre candidate pool, which it's everyone says, oh, our politicians aren't good. Like everyone says it, but it's true. Like if you look at the resumes of these people, like you go on their websites, especially at the local level, you're just like, you're like, these are the people with the biggest keys. It's funny. My thesis with a California politician, a state assembly person, or a state senator, that is the easiest position to get and has the highest impact in the world. California is one of the most influential states, yet the people that are deciding this billion, this trillion, how big is our economy here? I think 5 trillion. It's massive. It's fifth in the world or something. The people deciding the policies of this state are people that haven't done anything. They've never created a job. They haven't built anything from the ground up. A lot of them are lawyers. And it's like, dude, we need people that have taken things from 0 to 1 that have actually built things. So that is my biggest. And the other thing is, my biggest thing is the talent pool's beat. The other thing is the lack of optimism I feel in politics. all politicians, they want you to look left or look right, and instead of look up at the stars, instead of having optimism, like, yo, we can solve hard problems. We can, we've split the atom. The Manhattan Project was $30 billion, like in today's dollars. Like we can invent. Obviously, that was a destructive technology, but my point is, nuclear energy came out of that. We've gone to the moon.
It was destructive technology, but I mean, you could argue that the nuclear aspect, nuclear is super interesting to me, right?
100%.
Because it's been politicized, and yet it's the cleanest energy on the planet, right?
Yes.
Now, how do we get around that? How do you get the bugaboo around nuclear energy off the table so that we can actually have a dialogue around, how to use that energy more efficiently? Because we're looking for the renewable, right? We're looking for the solution. Oil isn't, obviously, to your point in one of the blogs that I watched and I agree with, oil isn't going away anytime soon. But you have this amazing energy, and you've had it, right? Yeah. But it's been so politicized that you're just not using it. It's crazy.
The good news is I think we're coming around on that. My view that this is where I think people disagree. It's always fun talking about things you disagree with. So I think a lot of people disagree with this. My view on energy is that, like, China pollutes more than the U.S. and Europe combined, and U.S. emissions per capita, we do a great job here. It's gone down. Like, we've done a really excellent job. Obviously, I believe in climate change. But I believe in climate change, but you can put that as a quote. Anyone that says I believe in climate change, but anyway, I think that we need more energy in all aspects. So we've had grid issues across the country because we're ramping down coal. We're not focused on that. Now, listen, I want to get rid of coal tomorrow, but the problem is you hear someone like Elon Musk say, if I could tap a button that got rid of fossil fuels, I wouldn't. We need those for now. We need more energy. Like we need the utility rates in California, the highest in the country, because we've prematurely shut down. So I don't know how hurting poor people, which is what this does, because they spend a greater percentage of their income on energy, on utility, on gas, hurting poor people to get a marginal benefit for the environment is not worth it to me. We should focus on cheap energy that drives down the cost of goods and that gives more opportunity to more people, especially the lower class. Listen, these wildfires over here, the amount that it burned, UCLA did a study in 2020 that talked about the fires, I think a year or two before, that said basically all the climate stuff California's done was erased with one wildfire. In 18 years of climate-friendly policies were erased by one wildfire. So it's like, we need to do things that make sense where the bang is worth the buck. Like, we are focused on getting rid of, for example, gasoline lawnmowers. It's like, yes, we should move to electric eventually, but the reality is for small landscaping businesses, first of all, a lawnmower doesn't do much, whatever. I know they have bad emissions, blah, 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 and they're worse than a car because they don't get regulated the same, but it's like hurting a lawn care business that is trying to take care of people's yards and making them buy an electric thing that costs 5 times as much. Those are small ball politics solutions. I want to invent new technology. I want to deploy more nuclear, deploy more natural gas. Let's do things like that rather than try to do policies banning internal combustion engine cars or banning lawnmowers. What are we doing? It's small ball.
Well, it's doing things that are politically expedient that make no rational sense whatsoever. And I think that to me is the hurdle that you have to overcome with a lot of these, because there are solutions out there, but you've got to be able to get to a point where you're actually debating these things again. What do you think is going to be the catalyst that kind of pulls us out of this phase that we're in right now? Right?
Yeah.
We'll leave to the side who's right and who's wrong. Yeah. I think that everyone can agree that it's an unhealthy environment that we're in right now, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're in the right or in the wrong, the way that things are progressing and the way that we're having conversations and the way that we're not listening and the way that we're, demonizing one side for, political gain, etc., is just it's unhealthy, and you can't continue down this path. So something's going to break it, right? What do you think? Any idea on what that is?
Well, I think that, there's good ideas on the left. There's good ideas on the right. I think that framing those ideas, it's funny because I think that often there's these 80-20 issues that I think immigration is a good one. I think the vast majority of Americans are supporters of immigration. They know an immigrant. They either were an immigrant. They have a friend that was a second generation, whatever.
The country is built on immigrants.
Yes, we are. Most people are totally for immigration. I would love to expand immigration, but I also want to expand legal immigration. I think that it's most people want to know who is coming into their country. They want to know, especially when you have things like fentanyl, criminals coming across the border. Like, we need to know who's in our country. I think most Americans are like, and you look at the Pew polling. Pew's a great nonpartisan. They do great polling on this stuff. It's like most Americans want a secure border, and I think most Americans also like immigration. That's a classic issue where it's like the left and the right are not doing the 80-20 thing. Like, the left, I think, is generally, I mean, under Biden, we had more border crossings than ever. They didn't prioritize it. And then the right is focusing on, obviously people don't want a criminal here, but when you're arresting people, or when your messaging is around immigrants in general, or when you're trying to, target someone that's been here 20 years that has never committed a crime, like, that's just not the way to do it. It's like, if you keep it really tight, like, secure the border, expand immigration, legal immigration, expand high quality immigration, like for industries that we need where we're missing talent, like allow people to come, like let's brain drain the planet, bring them all to the US and fast track the right doesn't think that way. They don't think like, oh, let's get all the smartest people in the world. And the left doesn't really think that way either. They're like, let's be much more permissible on the border. It's like, there's a common sense 80-20 solution here that I think most people agree with. But the solution, dude, generally, I'm a total optimist. America is the greatest social experiment in the history of humanity. I think we have a better chance. I think we're going to be great in 100 years. I think there's no other country in a better position than we are. So I have a very deep optimism. I think we are going to be good. But on the other hand, obviously, we also need to then do the work. We need to we need to actually, people need to run for office. People need to try to fix the problem.
Well, you had wind down earlier, and now you have do the work now. I couldn't agree with that more.
Right.
And, I don't know what your plans are.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what your plans are.
Yeah.
But you have, I think you've got you have a base for a pretty strong platform. You just got to get the word out, and you got to make a decision at some point. And I'll commit to you with my massive following on this podcast. I'll bring you back on if you decide that you want to do it, and we'll dive in, because, as dangerous as it is right now to talk about some of these issues, it's not only critically important, but I'm also just fascinated by it because, democracy's messy, and it's always been messy.
It is. Yep.
It goes through these periods, but democracy only moves forward when, leaders emerge and start to drive the country in, the directions that the country needs to go. And it takes courage and, conviction and all of that. But if you get there, I'll put you back on here and we'll go deep. I'd love to do that. Yeah,
that sounds awesome. Well, we'll see what the more to come. We'll see what the plan is there.
I would highly encourage anyone who's listening to this to go and pull up some of the COVID 21, 22, 23 no gradients from you.
Totally.
I would highly encourage you to start doing that again. And the 15-minute riffs, those types of things. I mean, you have an ability and a knack to do that. You can take complex issues and break them down so that, people like me can actually argue with you about Bitcoin and sound at least have some information that is relevant that we can do that. So I'm just being this you and me talking. I would highly encourage you to get involved, get active, get those things back up in line, and then let me know when you do that, and we'll help you any way we can.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you are one of the few people on LinkedIn that's reposted some of my voter guides and some of my stuff.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Yeah, most people are, they don't.
You don't touch
especially
it.
on LinkedIn. Yeah, they also don't want to touch it. It's like, okay, well, let's just at least talk about it. And especially at these local and state, dude, no one talks about these things. Everyone's talking about DC, but it's like a lot of decisions made in your state of tax policy, fucking capital gains, like how the money is spent, how most of your tax dollars, actually, I don't know if it's most of your tax dollars. I don't know the split. I think most probably goes to the federal government, but a lot of your tax dollars are spent like with leaders that no one even reads about. Like no one even knows what assembly person is. And I don't blame people. They have other priorities, but it's like, then you get these elections. Important. You get these elections that they're not even competitive. There's not even debates. There's people that just get anointed by the party and then they just win. There's they don't even have a debate, Joe. Like you can't even see what these people believe. It's like there's like this cabal that's like, okay, this person has put in their time, so they get to be the assembly person.
Kingmakers. They're putting people in spots. Yeah,
100%.
It's crazy.
100%.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick hit, and then we'll wrap this up. And want to make sure that people know how they can get in touch with you. So, favorite quote, motto. What's one of your favorite quotes that you've got?
Yeah, I don't have one that I'm always thinking about, but I just read Devil in the White City, which I highly recommend about the
Larson.
Dude, yeah. Larson.
That guy can write. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. But Daniel Burnham, the architect of the Chicago World's Fair, and later he did the highway system and stuff. He said, "Make no small plans; they have no magic to stir men's blood." Like, I really like that. Like, don't play small ball. This is what I'm talking about with politics. Like, why don't we let's go for like, fusion energy. Let's go for limitless clean water. Let's go for like controlling the weather. Like, let's go for like big solutions, not like we're going to ban a lawnmower. So like, you got to aim high. The bigger the plan is, like, and plus that guy actually did something. Like, he was a complete and utter beast. So, and so I that book was awesome. I read it in high school, and I'm now reading another Larson book. But that I love that. I love that.
Any book Eric Larson reads, the one that I haven't read is the Civil War one that he just did. I'm super
the Demon of Unrest, I think it's called. I just started it. Yeah. It's good.
It's funny. I just finished. I missed his book on the Lusitania, which was an unbelievable.
My wife read.
I
need to read that.
So now we've answered my second question. A book you'd recommend?
Devil in the White City. Generally, I do think books are like, especially on these business type, like people are like, oh, you got to read this book. I think books are overrated in terms of like trying to do something with regards to like a business or something. Like, just go do the thing that you want to do. Like, it's never been easier to set up an LLC. It's never been easier to do anything with the power of the internet and like the power of AI. You can get answers to legal questions. You don't need to hire a bunch of lawyers. You can just go do the thing. I don't really read business books. I used to now.
I've never read a business book that I couldn't read in a day, because you read the first 20 pages and then it's repetitive after that, and you kind of pull out what you want to pull out, and it doesn't really kind of help you. I've found that reading books about real people doing real things, or who have done real things, just totally provides you perspective that no business book's going to be able to accomplish. So I agree with you on that.
Totally.
Piece of advice you'd give to someone looking to enter your field, or have a meaningful impact, or start a new company. I mean, any words of wisdom you can give to people thinking about that?
Just start. I'd say, especially in the software world, what I love about it, I think it's a very meritocratic world, in that I never care when I'm interviewing someone like a contractor, or even like to bring on someone full time. Like, I never care about their education. The main thing I care about is your side projects. What are you doing? Because the people that have side projects and are spending their free time on this are the people you want to work with. I don't even care as much what you do day to day. What are you doing with your free time? So my advice is, like, if you're a developer, make side projects, publish them on the internet, make them easily accessible so the person interviewing you can like, even if you're getting new, it's never been easier to learn anything in the history of humanity. Like, you don't even need to go to a boot camp. Just go build a thing. Just go build a piece of software that you think is cool. And then starting a business, just start it. Like, you're not going to starve. Just go start it. Like, worst case, you can always just get a job. Like, and right. Don't make it bigger than it is.
Yeah, it's really just put one foot in front of the other every day, right?
Yeah.
It's like, get a general feeling of what you want to do, and then just, execute. I mean,
something that I've been thinking about recently is do the thing that gives you limitless energy. So, which I think is different than do something that makes you happy, or do something. I don't know. I think if you're working on something where you find yourself like you're not looking at the clock and you can just keep doing it and you lose track of time, it's not necessarily making you happy. I don't even know what happiness means, but it's do the thing that like where you just you can just keep doing it, and like then you can work 10 times faster if you're doing something that you actually care about. And that, but yeah, just whatever you look back at your life, look back at my week. Okay, I was working on this thing and I was just in the flow. Okay, that's the thing that you should try to do full time.
I couldn't close the podcast any better than that, so I'm not going to.
There we go.
One last question: where can people get to you?
Oh, Fullsend.io is our website. I'm on X, Dixie Lucas. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really post that much. NoGradient.com. I don't do the podcast. I do post articles sometimes where I'll write pieces and post those, but I haven't done that in a while. But yeah, and I'm around.
Well, if you're a company that needs software help and you don't know where to go, I'm going to tell you right now, you go talk to those guys at Fullsend, and you will not be disappointed. You guys have been great partners of Givinga. You've been great partners of me personally, and I just can't thank you enough for selecting us when we were barely breathing, sticking with us as we kind of emerged out here. And I just wish you guys all the success, and anything that I can do to, preach from the mountaintop, I will continue to do that. You guys have been great partners for us.
Thanks
for the time, Dick.
Yeah, thank you for the time. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
You bet it.